welcome LiveOverflow on
Hello,
this first
thank you.
episode. This first episode of CVE Chronicles. So we would be having a simple chat with him, and later on, let's see where it goes.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much, and hello, everybody.
So, how are you doing? First question would be.
Generally, I'm doing well. Always stressed from work. Right now, a little bit sick, but besides that, generally doing well.
I hope you recover soon. So,
Yeah.
let's start about discussing on you. So, can you tell me about your journey as a hacker, like how you started, and what was the first thing that inspired you to dwell in the field of hacking?
Sure. So I have always been interested in computer science. I've always done programming. So as a teenager, I was learning a little bit of HTML and PHP and Visual Basic, wrote a couple of tools and small games and stuff like that. So it was always clear that I would do like computer science. I joined a technical high school and then afterwards also went to a university for my bachelor's in applied computer science. And that was like 2010. I finished school and went to a university. So I was not in the world of hacking at all. I was just doing computer science and I loved programming. But I did have like a little bit of experience. So at the time I heard of SQL injections, for example, before. But yeah, I of course was interested, but I was really more into programming. I didn't really know how to learn hacking or so. And then during university, I believe it was my second year or so, I discovered CTFs and war game challenges. Back then it was IO Smash the Stack, or it started with the Stripe CTF. The Stripe, the payment processor, had a hiring CTF kind of thing. I found that, and through that I found then IO Stack the Smash, and this is where I learned like basic buffer overflows. And so this was my introduction. I have never heard of CTFs before, and suddenly I was trying to solve like these hacking challenges, and this was the hook. Like this is what I thought. Wow, this is incredible, and this was so much fun. And so yeah, so I would say this was my real start.
Once you entered, there is no going back.
Yeah.
What was your first hack?
It's difficult to define like what would be the first hack. When I was in school still, I somehow heard about SQL injections, and so my first hack was like playing around with SQL injections. I remember creating a school like a presentation in school about SQL injections. So this was my first hack. I guess the first real hack, which is again also not a real hack, was against the website of a friend. So my friend in university, which also was my roommate at the time, he developed a browser game, like a strategy browser game, where you build tanks and jets and soldiers and you attack each other. And I found an SQL injection that caused an error in the database, and that way you could never lose a fight. You could always only win a fight. And so this was my real hack against something real, which made him very mad. And it was he yelled at me and was So that was like my first real hack, I would say.
That's exciting. For that, I will share one incident of mine. So it happened when I was kind of aware of certain things. And there is something called VoIP calling, right? We can definitely call someone from someone else's number. So I called one of my teacher in university from his, his fellow teacher, and informed that the head principal has informed to give a leave early. Since that person was existing vice principal, we got 2 hours off, and school was kind of ended early. But
And how did you know how to do that, and what motivated you to do that?
okay, so I was kind of going through an article on scammers. Okay, scam calls. I find it interesting. So I don't know this method still works or not, but I created my VoIP server on one of the VoIP engine named Compact. And from there, I linked in with Void. It's a mobile application to run the VoIP. And from there, I kind of created. At that time, see, I wasn't spending any money. Uh, they provide somewhat around 50 or 60 cents as free. So you can kind of make call of 1 or 2 minutes. Yeah. So moving further, how you started your professional life as a ethical hacker?
Yeah, that was very lucky. So again, I was in university studying applied computer science, and after university, my plan was to either start working in engineering development. I was applying for like a web development company, or I would maybe do my master's as well in computer science. But then, luckily, just pure luck, I met Thomas Roth. He has also a YouTube channel called Stack Smashing, and I met him at a local hackerspace, and I don't know why, but he recommended me to somebody. Like he said, "Hey, yo, there's Fabian, and he has potential." And this person was looking for like penetration test stuff, and I did one penetration test. At the time, it was like a real client. It was a client that was running a PHP website, and that test went very well. I got lucky because it was a very broken PHP website, so I left a good impression, and that was my start. But I'm still working for basically the same group. It's on a freelance basis, Cure53. And back then it started very slow. Like back then it was like a very small company. There was maybe like one project every 2 or 3 months. So I decided, okay, I'm not taking a job. I do my master's degree, and on the side, occasionally I get some projects. And over time, it became more and more projects. And so suddenly I was working as a freelance penetration tester.
That's good. Of course, sometimes luck and sometimes, your skills take you to the places you never imagined.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on. Yes.
And I just wanted to say, like, at the time, I didn't really realize like this connection to Thomas, how like valuable, so to say, it would be, or what it would bring me. Even that he recommended me, that took a few years to realize like what he had done for me, like how lucky I am with that. And now, many years later, he's also doing YouTube, so we reconnected over that again, and we started Hackstree, our web security online training platform, together. So it's like interesting how like connections you make like long time ago might evolve into something very prosperous down the line. So yeah, that was very lucky. And yeah, so I encourage you to all, connect and help each other out. So Thomas helped me out, and now I like to think like through my YouTube growth, I was able to help him now, doing together the Hackstree or so. So like try to help people and build connections, and you never know. Like it can take many, many years for these things to pay off, but ultimately, it's probably a very good investment.
Definitely. From that, I want to ask how you started your YouTube channel. Like, what was your first idea, or what motivated you to start your YouTube channel?
Yeah, my motivation was when I saw GeoHot, a very famous hacker, well known for kind of like the first iOS jailbreak stuff and PlayStation 3. Now he is like developing self-driving cars. But back then there was like this a group that started to do live streaming CTF challenges. And I don't believe he was the only one. I think there were others, but his recordings somehow survived, and I saw them back then, and he was really good, and it was for me very interesting to see. You have to keep in mind that back then, like in 2014, I believe it must have been, there were no hacking YouTube videos, really, like actual technical ones. So
Yes.
like looking a professional over the shoulder, like seeing, like even development, like right now YouTube is full of like development tutorials and streamers on Twitch live developing and stuff. But back then it was super, super rare to see people recording themselves coding. And as a doing software engineering, just seeing people how to use the terminal, what tools do they use, how do they configure their IDE, how do they develop, like this was mind-blowing to me. I never saw that. And so for me, this was so helpful to see GeoHot like hacking, how he uses GDB and all that stuff. And then I thought, this is so valuable. Oh my gosh, this is so important. I'm not on his level, like I'm not very advanced, but I can maybe help other people's after me and explain some of the things that I found difficult. And if I can just show them, then it will be much easier. So I started doing the same thing, live streaming and live streaming buffer overflows. And that's how, the name LiveOverflow came to be. But then I realized I was very bad at live streaming. So I started out on Twitch, but I was very bad with live streaming. And so I decided it was easier for me to make planned videos that I could write a script for, and so forth. So yeah, so then I started doing YouTube videos instead.
And now you're motivating thousands.
Thank you. There are still, if you are curious, there, if you look on my channel, go to the playlist. There's a playlist called old boring videos or something like this. You can click on them. Those are like the very first like live stream recordings. So compare that to like the videos today. It's very terrible, but might be interesting to see like the evolution, how it went from that to the videos today.
Of course. You basically dwell into physical penetration testing, or let's say hardware hacking. So what piques your interest there? What story behind it?
Yeah. Generally, I'm interested in anything hacking. Like, I just love to understand the world and understand how software and hardware works. I just find this just interesting. Even as a kid, to watch these TV shows on how something is made, see the process of manufacturing and so forth. I don't know. I think this is giving me a lot of joy to understand complex systems, and hardware is obviously a very complex system. And I always thought it's so cool to see like these wires and attach something and then do something with it. So hardware hacking, of course, was also very interesting. I mentioned I met Thomas in a hackerspace. So a hackerspace is not something where security is done. It's more like the old school hacking sense in terms of creativity. So there were a lot of people working on electronics. And I also got like my introduction to working with Arduino, designing my very first, very simple, bad PCB and getting that PCB printed and then soldering it. So like getting just like basic experience. So I don't know, just like understanding it is fun. And then by coincidence, RiskCure, like a hardware security research company, created a hardware CTF. I stumbled over that and I thought, wow, that is amazing. That is like my chance, similar to how the Stripe CTF with the buffer overflow challenges. Now there's this RiskCure hardware CTF. This is my chance to now learn hardware hacking. And so I basically everything I really know from hardware hacking, I kind of like got from that. Plus, at the time, there was also a university, or actually, I don't know the timeline anymore, what came before what and so forth. But I also had in university in my master's, I was doing regular computer science, but there were some security courses, and there was one hardware security course, which happened to the instructor or professor also from that course is also a very famous hardware hacker, Nedos. And so like I got that connection, and he was connected with Thomas, and like yeah, so that's how I kind of got like into hardware hacking. And Thomas was obviously a huge inspiration. Thomas is very well known in the hardware hacking area. He's doing a lot there. And sorry, my cat is disturbing us.
So cute.
So yeah, but I'm not on the level of Thomas. Like Thomas is on a very different level. Hello.
What's her name?
Lumpy. His name is Lumpy.
Okay. It's kind of adorable.
That might be also like actually a first time on like LiveOverflow social. I think I shared it on Instagram, like videos and pictures of him, but definitely the first video. Yeah, sorry for the interruption.
No, of course I love cats. Okay, so about bug bounty. What was your first bug?
I have never done bug bounty. I mean,
you
I have
posted
signed
a
up.
lot on bug bounty.
Yeah. So the thing is, when like bug, bug bounties, when bug bounty started to like become popular, I was already working as a freelancer, doing penetration tests. So I never really got into it. I also thought it's way too hard, and all the bugs are already found. Like I have no chance, and so forth. So I never really participated in bug bounty. Of course, I have been doing security now for many years, 10 years or so. So of course, I've like signed up to HackerOne once, and there might have been like one report or two reports I sent in or so. But I've never really done bug bounty. I've never earned money from bug bounty. So like I have no like bug bounty experience. However, my freelance hacking, like web security, like when I say we do pen testing, we don't do like the network scanning pen testing. So like the work I do is really like the work a bug hunter does, except that we usually get the source code. So it's not like this black box bug hunting. So I've like not really that much experience with like all the tools for scanning and finding all the subdomains and I don't know, this kind of stuff, like the content discovery phase. Usually in these pen tests, we get the source code, or at least we get all the information. Like here are all the subdomains. Here's the server configuration. Nowadays, with clients having their sites like set up on AWS, you might get Terraform definitions, so you can just like see exactly how their whole setup is and what the endpoints are and so forth. So like this aspect of bug bounty, I have no clue. But then the bug hunting itself, like looking for the vulnerabilities, not every client gives us source codes, of course. So like all this discovery process, poking, trying to provoke bugs, finding something weird and exploiting that, so forth. Like that aspect is the same. So that's why I like talk a lot about bug bounty, or I make videos about bug bounty. Mostly, I guess, because like of the marketing, the term, so people can see it, because I think it describes it well. With pen testing, the problem is like people think it's like network scanning and so forth. So I don't like the name pen testing so much, but bug bounty describes it well. It's like this application security work, trying to find actual like vulnerabilities in applications. So even though I'm not technically doing bug bounty, I think I have like the technical experience part is kind of the same.
Good. Okay. You also post a lot about CV analysis.
Yeah.
One of your video kind of caught my attention was you used ChatGPT to analyze a CV and then mitigate it. So how you came up with that idea, and how was your experience? I have seen the video, but I want to know the actual experience while recording.
I don't remember what I'm not sure if this was maybe even a live stream at the time. I'm not so sure about the details anymore myself, but actually I've been using ChatGPT more and more. I mean, the idea, if you do like social media like me, like I'm on Twitter like all the time, right? Like ChatGPT became popular. People shared all the time, like using ChatGPT for different stuff. Like, let ChatGPT write an email, let ChatGPT write a blog post, let ChatGPT write code. So obviously, like, let's try it on something security related. And there came this new vulnerability, and it was like something more low level, and like with the packet struct kind of stuff. So like C code, and I was like, of course you can figure that out yourself, reading the code and understanding it. But then I thought, like, let's try to be lazy and let's see what ChatGPT can do. And so the interesting part about ChatGPT is that it can help you. So how to describe this? So when, let's say, you see a write-up for vulnerability, in this case like the CVE, maybe you can look up the CVE right now, then you can mention it so people can reference it while I explain. So there are some technical details about it, and now when you want to understand this, now you need like the experience to figure out how it works. And your experience could be, for example, that you recognize, oh, it's the source code. Now I'm going to the source code, I'm reading the source code, I'm trying to reason about it. And you need to ask the right questions. You need to have the correct, like, Google search terms. Like, that's the skill in itself, to figure out the correct Google search. And ChatGPT kind of solves this. You can literally tell ChatGPT, here's the write-up, can you explain this to me? And even if it's not correct, or not entirely correct, ChatGPT already reasons about something and can already reference something. For example, there might be a variable name that makes sense, that has a meaning, and by knowing this meaning, it would be easier to understand this. Now, in Google, it's kind of difficult to ask, what does this mean? Like, what does this variable name mean? Because Google has no, like, context around it. So you have to, like, look up the source code, read the source code, and try to reason about it. Maybe you can find a comment. But ChatGPT, you can just ask it, hey, there's this variable name in this kind of function about the CVE. What could this name mean? And ChatGPT can, like, kind of like a colleague, like, what do you think? What does this variable name mean? What do you think what this means? And it's just an idea. Like, it doesn't have to be correct, but it helps you, oh, the variable name means that, and suddenly the code becomes clearer. So it's kind of like this bouncing off of ideas against each other that I find very useful.
It was your patch analysis on CV 2022 23093. It was ping buffer overflow.
Ping. Right. Yeah. Ping. Yeah. I was the whole time thinking it was something with email, but it was ping. Okay.
You actually created another video related to web development later on using ChatGPT, I guess.
Yeah.
So moving further, what do you think would be the role of artificial intelligence in CV analysis and remediation?
There are lots of tools, like I explained or try to explain right now. Like, it helps you, like, kind of like reason about it. So like a developer of a code target, like, they understand, like, the functions, they understand the architecture, kind of like what functions calls what and what the variables mean and so forth. And I think this kind of like reasoning, the AI or even ChatGPT already can kind of like do, especially for popular software. And of course, it will, in the future, you will be just able to give it like a Copilot already almost like does this. You give it just like one project, and it can help you reason about that code. And so when you do like patch diffing or analysis, and it's a new code base, like that's the problem with like our kind of job. It's oftentimes not like that we get to work on a single project all the time and we can build this experience. We might like one day look at this kind of web server, then at this framework, then at this other framework in this other programming language, then at this, like, we constantly change. So we can never like develop a lot of deep experience, understanding of a certain framework. Of course, over time, you might encounter the same one. So you develop this. Anyway, AI can like just make you faster and more efficient in this process. And it helps you being able to dig deeper into certain code areas. That's one thing. The second thing is, for example, what I have used it for before is when I analyze vulnerabilities, sometimes I want a test setup. And sometimes that's very simple, like just like you open Python and there's maybe a library you want to check out some weird behavior, but sometimes it's more complex. Sometimes you have to set up like a complete framework. And I've used JetGPT, for example, to say, look, I have an Ubuntu system and I want to test this function in this framework. Please give me all the installation steps and create an example application that is using this function. And of course, like not perfect, but it's almost perfect. Like I can sometimes copy it 100%. Sometimes I have to make some changes. But generally speaking, I can offload my mental load, like all the thinking about setting this all up. I can just like copy and paste it and set this quickly up. And then at some point it's set up and I can actually poke this function and test with it. And I think this is extremely powerful in your own efficiency. Similarly, in fuzzing, people use AI to create like fuzzing harnesses. It's kind of like the same thing. You say like, hey, I want to fuzz this function. Can you create, the function around it to call it? And it will potentially generate the fuzzing harness for it. Like things like this. There are just like so many things to make you more efficient and help you reason about the code.
Have you ever used blackbox.io? Blackbox.io. It's an AI-based coding system. So
yeah, no clue. No.
You must try it. Okay.
Yeah.
I bet you they are providing almost accurate script for everything. They can even write a proper full-fledged exploit for you. So it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. But so I don't know in this. Yeah, I don't know in this case, but like a lot of these tools are like wrappers around OpenAI APIs, and so I just like to maybe like poke it myself. Also, with customer data, it's always a bit tricky in these kind of things. With bug bounty, you don't really care. You can just throw everything in these kind of tools. But yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So if you're talking about CVs and AIs, I have seen many of your videos where you talk about the, that you must have a specific approach towards the CV, right? So what's your fundamental approach to understand or mitigate the CV, or how you try to look at the CV to solve it?
From what perspective are you talking about? Are you talking like, for me, like maybe I find like a client application and I read that there's a CVE about it. How would I try to exploit it? Or I mean, this really always depends on the kind of project. Sometimes the CVEs have like issues attached to it. So you can look up the CVE, you see there's an issue, and then you just read the write-up and you can see, does this really apply to my client? Like if it's a CVE in a library, is my client even using that function or so forth? So it's really nice when people have it always very well documented. And usually for like frameworks, that's done reasonably well. Sometimes you can search directly the commit history to look for patches or commits that reference that CVE, or comments in the code that reference the CVEs, to kind of like figure out what is it even exactly about. Like, does it make sense for me? Like, is my client even using that particular function or so? But there are also CVEs where it's not clear, or sometimes historically, like if you find like an old system like 4 years ago and there's a CVE, then kind of like a lot of historic like context is lost, and sometimes it's difficult to figure out like what exactly was it about, especially with, for example, Windows or so. Like if there's a CVE in something, then it's sometimes very difficult to figure out like where it is. You might know the version and you can tell, okay, my client is using that version or not, but what it exactly was about is almost like impossible to figure out. I have not really experience with that, but there's another YouTuber or streamer he has done patch analysis, patch diffing with like Windows CVEs. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Or I send it to you afterwards. So it always depends on what kind of CVE, what kind of system it is. As I said, sometimes there's good documentation, sometimes not, and it always depends on like how you approach it and how you can figure it out. And well, let's say for example in web security, it's generally good, well documented. So if you have a CVE, usually it's pretty clear, like about the GitHub issue or so, or the email that reported it. Usually you have that information, and with that information, you see, okay, the issue lies maybe in that one function. Now you have to look, is the client affected by it? Are they even using that? And if they use that function, do they use it in the insecure way or not? Yeah, I don't know. Is that answering the question, or were you looking for something else?
No, it pretty much answered the question. I just wanted to know your mindset, like how you approach towards any kind of thing. So, since you are honorary member of this society, what's your view on it?
Oh, what's my view on it? Well, generally, I think because like a lot of CVEs don't have like proof of concept exploits and so forth, and generally, so like a community around CVEs that kind of like talk about the CVEs, try to understand it, try to analyze it, is like very useful. Because like I said, like often
we do have remediation scripts and all. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, as an attacker, I don't really care about the remediation scripts, but but even the remediation scripts are often like extremely helpful to figure out like how to exploit something and what exactly the issue is. Because like I said, like not every even if you like see, okay, this Node.js module has a CVE, does that like even matter or not? So like more information is always better. And I think it's also like a fun thing, like I was motivated by CTFs to dig deeper. Others are motivated by bug bounties to dig deeper. And analyzing CVEs has always been like a super educational thing for me as well. For example, the pseudo vulnerability series, or also right now the WebP vulnerability series, where I'm trying to understand like a particular CVE. That is, it's fun. Like you have this goal, you have context, you have a motivation, you want to figure this one out. It's cool to have like some kind of goal and shared goal also, where other people can maybe help you, where you can ask people and stuff. Do you hear my cat in the background? He's going wild. I'm sorry about that. In case you hear.
Yeah, that was insightful. So, Fabian, I also wanted to, ask one more thing. Okay, for the newcomers in the field, right? I mean, if they're having no prior knowledge of ethical hacking, or let's say cybersecurity, what would be your advice to them to how they can explore the field or start developing the skills for the?
Yeah, personally, I think programming experience is extremely important, like understanding how systems are even built. So that's a generally important skill to have. But the problem is always like about motivation. Like I rather like have somebody be motivated by developing a game and learning like programming through developing a game, which you would think has nothing to do with security, rather than somebody who like just watches my YouTube videos, for example. Like I think you can learn more, or you gain more skills for hacking by developing a game than watch my videos, for example. So I think practical experience is very important, and you somehow need to find something that motivates you, like some goal. For me, it has always been CTFs. To me, it's just like super fun failing, not figuring it out, and then reading up the write-ups and then solving it. It's like all this process like is extremely fun for me, and that has motivated me to do it. Programming, I also find extremely fun, like building my own tools and programs. Just like last week, I started Unity game development again. Why, I cannot tell you. I don't care. But I was just motivated. And I do believe like it gives me programming experience. Like, okay, Unity game engines it's not like super relevant, but I do still think it's like soccer. Like when you are training, you do in the end you want to play on the field and shoot the ball, but beyond that you should probably look at your nutritional, like the food you eat. You probably should do weight training as well. Like that has nothing really to do with like kicking the ball. That's the game, but everything else around it helps you to be like a good athlete. And I think with hacking,
Yes.
it's the same thing. Sure, you want to focus, you want to play on the field and look at that CVE or find the CVE, do the bug bounty, get the money and so forth. But there's so much around it that can help you to be a good hacker. And you need to find some motivation, whatever that is, to dig into technical stuff. And if you can somehow guide your motivation to technical stuff that is more relevant, then it's of course cool. But most important thing is somehow to find something that motivates you. And so whether it's looking into CVEs, CTFs, programming, whatever, competitive programming can be fun. There are lots of ways, but you somehow, I don't know, just spend time on it. However, like you just have to figure out how somehow.
Yes, of course. You are doing CTF challenges, so you might visit many of the offline CTFs as well.
Did you see that jump?
He just
yes,
jumped.
and he is okay. Okay, so he might complain because now he is like very high up on my shelf and might not get out anymore. We will see how that goes. Okay. Regarding CTFs, I've not been at that many offline CTFs. Also, in the past years, I haven't really participated a lot in CTFs anymore. I've been way too busy with work, YouTube, and now Hackstream. So unfortunately, I don't get to play that much CTFs anymore. But over time, of course, I have participated in a few offline CTFs. Some of them are.
Which was most challenging out of them?
Every CTF is challenging. I
No,
mean,
the one which you find like you want to scratch your head out or something. That level of challenge.
I might have said that in one video maybe, but that literally applies to every CTF. I mean, there was the real world CTF in China, which was an offline CTF kind of, where also many years ago already now, but almost no team solved the challenge there. That was crazy. But yeah, every CTF is hard. Every CTF has hard challenges where like no team or maybe one or two teams maybe solve a challenge or so. Like there are always hard challenges. So it's not that the CTF itself is challenging, but the CTF challenges itself can or are very challenging.
Yeah. About the CTF in China, you mentioned it might be in 2018, I guess. Still, I remember because I used to follow CTF challenges throughout world. I tried to solve many of them and drastically failed in most of them.
Yeah, that's normal. Me too.
Yeah, that's quite a good learning experience, to be honest.
I try to mention it a lot in my videos that I'm failing, that I'm not able to solve it, that I needed to get help and so forth. But still, I think it comes across as if like these challenges are easy for me or straightforward. So let me just say it again. Like I also like for every solved CTF challenge you see on my channel, there are probably 20 I failed. And then even the ones I present on my channel, I oftentimes like I'm saying like I didn't figure this out, like my teammate figured it out or so. Like these are very, very hard, and that's totally fine. But that's fun to me. I know some people don't like failing, or like to me it's not failing. To me it's not a failure. It's for me. I'm always motivated when I notice like I'm not good enough. Like for me, that's a positive emotion. I know for other people that's like very demotivating and depressing, like I'm not good enough and so forth. For me, that has always like I'm very competitive, and I think that's why the motivation, like I'm not good enough, but I know I can do it. I just need to be better. Has always been like very motivating to me.
We know the field of cybersecurity and mostly penetration testing is a stressful field. Okay, so many people are facing early life career burnout. So, have you ever felt something like that? And if yes, then how you dealt with it?
Yeah, I mean, I have my phases. I have phases where I'm like not like into this career also. Like, for example, like last week I mentioned I started Unity development again. Like, is that not some kind of like crisis? Like, I don't care about bugs right now, just let me develop a game. But the thing is, for me, because I'm a freelancer and I can control how much I want to work. Like, I don't have to work 8 hours and I'm done. I can work however much I want, and I have also generally, like, I can only do YouTube because I am a freelancer. So I oftentimes work 2 weeks and then I have 2 weeks off, and I work 2 weeks and 2 weeks off. But the 2 weeks off is then, for example, YouTube or something else. So I'm always doing different things. And work is, of course, very web security related. But because of this time off and for YouTube, I can do other things. I can do Minecraft hacking. I can do hardware hacking. Like, nobody's like stressing me about, oh, I can do game development and maybe I make a CTF challenge out of it, which I've also done. Like, it's not the first time I do web game development, but in the past I turned it into a CTF challenge. So that's why, for me, I have not really experienced this extreme kind of burnout or anxiety. I have a well-paying job doing the pen test freelance basis, and I have the freedom to do whatever I want. And so I never really ran into that kind of problem. So yeah, unfortunately, that's a very privileged and lucky position. So it's not like I can give like a lot of advice for others on that.
About CTFs, I also want to mention on vsociety, we are launching a series of CTFs soon. And as of announcement, first would be on Inception movie-based CTF. So we are trying some concept with CTFs, like matching and mixing different concepts and technologies. So
yeah, cool. Yeah,
you will enjoy it. I bet you will enjoy it.
Cool.
So Fabian, it's like we're on the last segment of the podcast. So, first of all, thank you very much. We know our ups and downs since I started talking with you. Certain blunders was made, but I am very grateful to have you today. And a part of all odds, thank you very much for joining and making this podcast a success.